One of the really interesting things about Dutch art in the global age is that it captures the wide variety of types of paintings that the Dutch made famous in the 17th century. And one of the things that they did the best was marine painting, and this maritime art, like the painting by Bonaventure Peters that you see behind me here. This is a view of the harbor in Antwerp filled with Dutch ships. So a Flemish harbor, but filled with ships from the Dutch flag. And these were the ships that went not only from place to place in Europe, but in fact all across the globe. And it could sail to the South Seas or to North and South America. They were really masters of the sea in the 17th century, and it's what made them the richest, most powerful country in the world.
So here we're standing in a section called Amsterdam as a cosmopolitan hub. And really what we're trying to show is that in the early 17th century, Amsterdam transformed from being a cultural backwater to a global center of the world, where goods traded from across the world were converging, and the city underwent an enormous growth. People were coming in from the southern Netherlands, but also other parts of Europe, and even people from across the Atlantic. So this resulted in a city expansion. The old center of the city was expanded by concentric canal circles that are still with us today. And artists started to celebrate the newfound wealth and prosperity and centrality of the city in their paintings. One example is Van der Heyden, who specialized in cityscapes, but very, very specifically also works in Amsterdam. So here we're looking at one of those new canals with houses for the new elite, but also look here is the Westerkerk, a new Protestant church that they were proudly building in the city. Some of you might know that the Netherlands is a very rainy climate, but Van der Heyden showed the city as very sunlit, and he contrasted the blue sky with the warm brick materials of the houses in the church. So this section is called Global Citizens. And here we're looking at portraits of people who lived and arrived in the Netherlands in the 17th century. We focus on artists, we focus on families, but we also focus on the mercantile elite that were the buyers of works of art. And if you're a newly wealthy, arrived individual, you might want to have a landscape in your house, but of course also you want pictures of yourself. So we are very proud to present here two extraordinary portraits. This is a work by Frans Hals of Cunera van Baerstorp. She was the daughter of the mayor of Leiden, and she married a wealthy brewer from Haarlem. Now look at the way she is presented by the artist. Hals was known for having a very loose brushwork, so that everything looks very focused from the distance, but if you look closer, you can really marvel at the fact in which he basically very loosely applied the paint. The woman also looks out at you, and she's very confident because she puts her arm on her hip. Now this was a pose usually reserved for men, but Hals gave this confident woman who's at married age in her mid-20s this confident look. I really like her outward gait and her confidence. Another really wonderful portrait we have is a work by Rembrandt van Rijn. He started out in Leiden, his birthplace, but soon he would move to Amsterdam, which was really the booming art market. Now, Cunera van Baerstorp is presented 3/4 length, and this is an oval, sort of a bust size. So that would have been actually a cheaper price. But of course, Rembrandt really makes everything from the format that he has. He knew this woman well. Her name was Aaltje Uilenburg. She was niece of his employer, Hendrik Uilenburg, and later on he would marry one of the nieces of Aaltjes, Saskia. So this woman is the wife of a preacher, and she seemed modest, but actually her clothes are very expensive. She's wearing black silks. If you look very closely, you can see that she's actually wearing fur. Now, the 17th century was a very cold climate, and the fur would have been imported. So the woman, as Dutch as she can be, but some of her clothing were imported, and she's showing her connections to international trade routes through her clothing.
The last section of this exhibition is called Conspicuous Consumption, and it's appropriate because the Dutch by the 17th century had become the richest people in the world. And they were not shy necessarily about displaying this wealth. And this is a phenomenal example, this portrait by Ravestein of two little girls whose names we know, Henrika and Jacqueline Brouwert. And they are shown here in their Sunday best. I mean, they're dressed to the nines. I love it that the elder sister is actually holding the little girl by a leash on the back. She's got a strap that she's holding her with. This is the kind of painting that we wanted to include in this exhibition to suggest that there's a future at the end of this show. You have to think beyond the boundaries, the chronological boundaries of the exhibition, and think what happened in the world as a result of the Dutch trading and domination of the seas that changed the way the world is. And in fact, I think you could easily say that the way the world is now is in part because of how the world was then.